Golf Podcast, presented by Golficity, where we bring you the tips, instruction, and support you need to get the most out of your golf game. And now your hosts, Frank and Mike.
Hey guys, welcome back to episode 175 of the Golf Podcast, brought to you as always by Golficity. For those of you new to the show, I'm Frank, and as always, I have my partner in Bogey Golf, Mike, here with me. Mike, what's up?
Nice. What's up, Frank? Man, what a great start to the summer. I am playing so much golf. It's incredible. I'm thrilled to be able to get out there. I'm playing so many awesome courses. You and I are playing a ton, which is great. You know, having a lot of fun out there with you. But same old, man. What's going on with you?
Yeah, can't wait to get out there. We're supposed to hit the links tomorrow. So actually, no, Friday. So I'm looking forward to that. But this episode's going to be great. I've been looking forward to this one too for a while. You know, you and I, we're going to talk about how to dial in your distance when you're faced with those awkward elevation shots. You know, after listening to this episode, you listeners out there should have no fear when you step up to that 200-yard par 3 that's playing like 150. Mike, you remember that when we played, down at Wild Turkey, that crazy downhill one?
Oh yeah,
we were going down
that was
two
a tough
clubs. Yeah,
you never know what club to use.
You never know. That's the hole that really got the wheels turning. But this is also a highly listener requested topic. So we've had a lot of guys write in asking about this. So we're definitely looking forward to jumping into that. But before we hit that topic, I want to talk really quickly about the Golficity Virtual Open, which is going to be kicking off in just 1 week from now on July 15th. And it's going to run for 1 full month, wrapping up on August 15th. The Open is 100% free to enter. All you have to do is download the 18 Birdies app, enter tournament code 7172, and then play an 18-hole round of golf at a course of your choosing and submit your score. We're going to be using net handicap scoring, so everyone's in it to win it, leveling the playing field. And the prizes are awesome. They include some top golf brands, including Atlas Premier, Bridgestone, Arccos, Rucket, Champ, Lambkin. We're even going to be giving away a rangefinder or two. So definitely check that out. Go to golficity.com/open. That's where you see all the details on how to enter. Very easy, 3 easy steps. And then what you're going to do is play your round, play your best round you can for a chance to win thousands of dollars worth of prizes. But Mike, before we talk elevation, before we get into the Open more, let's talk about Bear Mattress, because these guys are huge supporters of the show and I'm loving what they've been doing lately. Look, summer's finally here. As you mentioned, it's hot. Some of us, although we hate to admit it, are getting a little older. Our muscles hurt. We struggle with getting a solid night's sleep. What Bear has done is they've created an optimal cooling, recovery, and pain relief mattress so you can sleep better and perform your best every single day. So save money, stop spending $3,000 to $4,000 on those so-called top-of-the-line mattresses. That's unnecessary. Bear mattresses are eco-friendly, they're comfortable, they're supportive, and get this, they're up to 7 times cooler than traditional foam at a fraction of the price.
Yeah, Frank, I'm actually on their website now looking at all of their mattresses. I am in the market for a mattress myself. And the cool thing is, any mattress, there is no mattress that's over $1,000. How cool is that? I mean, Bear mattresses, these things are made in the USA, sold online, and shipped free right to your door. So do us a favor, take a chance on these guys. If you're in the market for a new mattress, you have nothing to lose here. You'll get a 100-night in-home trial, which is essentially your whole summer. And if you don't love it, they'll pick it up and refund 100% of your money. It's that simple. Check them out at Bear Mattress. That's BEAR mattress.com today. And don't forget the promo code for our listeners, Golf Podcast, one word, for $50 off your purchase. So check those guys out at bearmattress.com. All right, Frank, before we dive in, you know, we're giving prizes away like crazy lately in the Facebook group, courtesy of our sponsors, Atlas Premier. And, you know, for those of you who are new to the show, we've been running this every week for the last 5 weeks, and we're going to be running it till the end of August. That's how great these guys at Atlas Premier are. So for the last month, Frank, we're going to be doing so many different giveaways, even maybe a $500 giveaway, you know, as we wrap it up with these guys at Atlas Premier. And what's cool is the winners of the prize, they're winning awesome prizes, about $160 prize pack that includes polos, T-shirts, golf hats, a 2-piece magnetic ball marker, which is really cool. It's like one of the coolest ball markers I've ever seen. And all you have to do is join our free Facebook group. It's that simple. Go to Facebook. Under groups, type in the Golf Podcast. It's free to join, and boom, you're entered right there.
Yeah, not only are they giving away a ton of stuff, but also they're giving great discounts. And even if you don't win it, you got to check these guys out. You know, not only do these Atlas Premier shirts look great, they're also some of the most comfortable threads I've ever worn on the golf course. From that little extra like cooling mesh material around the neck to the overall fit, it's not too tight, it's not too loose. It's so obvious these guys at Atlas have thought of everything. And Mike, I think you'll agree that we all need to step up our golf apparel game this summer, and Atlas Premier is the way to do it. So check out our friends at Atlas Premier. Give them some love. Follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Atlas_Premier, and check them out at atlaspremier.com. And now, like I said, they sweetening the deal even further. They started at 20% off. Now they bumped it up. They're going to give 25% off when you order on their website. All you got to do is use coupon code Golf Podcast at checkout. Another thing that they're doing exclusive just to us and to our listeners. So cool. We appreciate them constantly giving back. So check them out at atlaspremier.com for more. So Mike, we're going to talk about elevation changes. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Jumping really quickly back to the Open. I'm so psyched about this. It's kicking off in just a couple of days. We've had so many of our great sponsors and supporters jumping out, coming out of the woodwork and just throwing more prizes that we can give away. We just brought Ruckit on board not too long ago, and those guys go all the way back. Like to episode 1, they've been big supporters. So they reached out, they donated some more stuff to give away. Really cool. I can't wait. You get out there, get your round in and just have fun with it, because that's what it's all about. It's just about having some fun, and it's a way that we can bring everybody together and everyone can kind of play, even though we live all over the place. So right. I can't wait for that. That's going to be a big one. Other than that, we had played, and let's talk about the inspiration for this, or at least part inspiration for this. You and I played right at the start of the season. We played Wild Turkey. Right. And I was just flipping through the pictures that we took on, on the cell phones the other day. And, that downhill par 3 was epic. Do you remember the actual stats on that thing? I almost want to pull it up on my Arco so I can take a quick look. Do you remember, what that hole was playing?
That was, let me think, that was the 10th hole right after we made the turn, right by the end unit of those townhouses right there, right? Yep. Overlooking the mountain. I believe it was a 200 shot, because I remember I still went after it with the elevation change of like a 185 club, Frank. I think it played 185. I have the rangefinder with the elevation change. Yep. I use it in just regular play, but I think it was about 195 playing or 200 playing 180 or something like that. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
It was pretty crazy. I remember clubbing down at least 2, and I hit that green, so I was happy with it, but it looked like it was just a mile away. Let me see. I just kind of thumbing through my Arcos. You think it was hole number 10, right?
Yes, it definitely was 10.
Let's see. 10 here. Okay. It was even a little bit more epic than that. Listen to this. I hit the green with my 5 iron, 220 yards.
There you go.
And if it tells you anything, my 5 iron is traditionally my 180 club.
There you go. That's incredible.
That is incredible. And it was some view really looking down that hill. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty hole.
But that was, that's the challenge of it. Like you look at something like right off the bat, 220 yards, you might not be thinking to pull out that 5 iron or whatever. So we want to go over that. We want to talk about why that would be and why you're going to work on that elevation change, as well as some little tips and tricks to make your life a little bit easier out there. Before we do that, Mike, let's do a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll jump on into it.
All right, so you may know the USGA mostly for their 14 annual championships and competitions. Their championships are widely looked upon as the ultimate test in golf, but there's a lot about the USGA that you may not know.
Yeah, Mike, the USGA's innovation team has come up with a resource management app that helps course superintendents know how to better allocate their resources and help ensure a better experience for golfers. Plus, the USGA's handicap system helps level the playing field and makes the game more social.
And along with the RNA in Scotland, the USGA is modernizing the game's rules and even asking us for feedback. And they're inviting you to share that with them anytime online. There's a lot to love about golf, and the greatness of the game brings out the best in all of us. So discover more at usga.org.
Okay, so hopping back into it, there's on the surface of this topic, right? There's always going to be people who say, well, okay, that's simple. It's an elevation change. You either add or you subtract or whatever it may be. But in this game, getting your yardage right is so vitally important. And it can really mean the difference in at least one or two strokes on these types of holes. So we wanted to dive into it. And like I said, this is something that we got as a big listener request topic. We've heard a lot of people talking in the Facebook group asking about it, especially newer golfers who are just getting used to it. There is without a doubt, there is a degree of this that comes with practice, with playing a lot. You kind of gain an eye for it. You start to get a feel for where your clubs travel, how they travel, and you start to be able to adjust for elevations in a little bit more of an intuitive sense. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of thought that goes into it. I mean, just take a look at the PGA Tour, guys playing at the highest level. And when you have an elevation change, you're going to see a lot more talk between the caddy and the player because they're really working that out, because these guys are trying to dial that in as exacting as they can. And they don't have the benefit of a rangefinder, and especially not a rangefinder that calculates slope, which I want to talk about a little bit more in a minute. But let's not waste time. Let's dive right into it and let's talk about first things first. We've got 3 easy steps that you can use. And I always like to narrow things down to a step-by-step process. I think that makes it a little bit easier to have like a focused thought about it and a focused game plan. We talk a lot about like plan and then execution, like go into the planning phase and have a really solid plan and then switch to execution mode, because I don't think one works without the other. Executing without a plan is just kind of like just taking a slap at it. You know, you don't really know what you're doing. And vice versa. You know, if you're stuck in that planning phase, you very often will end up not committing to the shot. So you got to get to that plan in your mind, commit to the plan, and then go after it. So the first thing you want to do is just get an accurate yardage. You know, get up there. Don't worry about the adjusting for the slope at all. Just find out your exact yardage to the target. Be doing this either by, if you're not playing in a competition, you can use a rangefinder. Great. I use my app. Honestly, I sometimes if it's a really, really important shot, I'll pull out the laser rangefinder and go for it. But most of the time I keep checking it. This phone is just getting better and better. I switch back and forth. I'm always using, when I'm out there, there's always 2 apps open. I got 18 Birdies open and I've got Arcos open, and they both have amazing GPS, rangefinders in them. And I've found that almost without a doubt, they're within 1 yard plus or minus when I shoot it with the laser. So they're always right there. Right. But the main thing you want to do here is you want to get a couple numbers, and most of the apps will give this to you. You want to get that yardage to the hole itself, but you also want to know your number to the middle of the green, the front and the back of the green. So don't get ahead of yourself pulling out a club at this point. You just want to simply find those yardages, get your yardages and get to understanding them. The second part, and this is one of the most important parts, and I think this is the step that gets overlooked. Everybody does step 1 and step 3. They get the yardage and they try to judge the elevation, but they don't really spend enough time. I think there's a lot of tunnel vision that comes out there. They don't spend enough time trying to assess the green and the surrounding area. This is where you really want to look at it and get an idea of where the hazards, where the possible things that can get you in trouble are. We've used the analogy before. It's like a quarterback in football, and you're looking over your defense and looking at where are the areas that I can get in trouble. So you want to look at things like, is the green slope significantly in one direction or the other? Are there any major hazards to be concerned about around the green? And these observations are going to be super important, because anytime you have an elevation change, there's going to be a little bit of a guesswork as far as ball flight and distance goes. So here's where you really want to take that margin of error and try to move away from the things that can get you in trouble. So for example, let's say there's a water hazard short of the green. In that case, you're going to want to err on the long side. So while you're trying to judge that elevation change, put a little bit extra into it rather than trying to judge it exact and and coming up short. You got to try to like play your numbers and play your hazards and take them out of play. So whatever the case, this information that you gather is going to be really essential to playing the game successfully. Okay. So now we've got our yardage. We take a look at the hazards around the area. And the next thing is you want to judge that elevation. And it's the most difficult process without a doubt. It's something that I think comes with a lot of practice and getting out there and doing it. But what you want to do is you want to make as educated of a guess as possible. How uphill or downhill it is. It's very similar, in a larger scale, but it's very similar to what we do on the putting green. You know,
Right.
we take a look.
That's true.
I'm trying to get into that mode where I walk all the way around it, take a little bit extra time, because reading a putt from the side, like we've talked about, helps you see that slope a little bit more. Think about how much slope comes into play in that regard. Well, it comes into play here too. And you're not going to be able to, at least in any type of legal competition setting, you're not going to be able to accurately measure that slope. Now, I know there's rangefinders out there, dozens and dozens of them. They're getting cheaper and cheaper that have the slope adjustments, but typically those are going to be illegal in competition. So I'm not against using them. What I am all for is still learning the process behind how to do it. It's like in the old days when you're in school, you had the calculator, but the teachers always stress you still want to learn how to do it in case you don't have that calculator. And plus you get the inner workings and you get a little bit more insight into it. Same thing here. Let's say if you get too heavily reliant on your slope adjustment rangefinder, and now you decide to play in a local competition or something like that, and that's no longer in your bag, that's no longer something you can lean on, you don't want to be completely without any type of experience. So it's good to get that experience. And it might be a wise idea to just first quiz yourself, go through the process, get an idea of what you think it's playing, then pull out your rangefinder with the slope adjustment and see how right you are. It's a good practice to get used to.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, because you have a course that you play at often. It's your home course, and there's a lot of elevation change, especially on like the back 7 holes.
Tons.
And I'm thinking about that par 3 right before you cross the street that's actually uphill, and you can't see the green at all. And I know you got bunkers on the left or whatever it is, and you don't know there's a road behind it. I mean, you really have to get that right, because you feel like you need to muscle up to get it up there.
Yep.
And maybe you fly it into the street. You just said a moment ago that to assess the green in the surrounding area, but not all greens, course architects are pretty smart. Not all greens have that bailout area. There's times where you got to be spot on. That one you just talked about at Wild Turkey. If you were long there, you were in jail. You were a lost ball. You're hitting 3. You're probably hitting another one off the tee. So it's a guessing game, and I don't know how the players can. I use the slope adjustment. I'm used to it. I've been using it for a couple of years. How do you do it without it?
Well, that's part of the fun too. Don't forget, is getting inside the course designer's head. And if you really look closely, they will, they'll try to trick the eye and things like that in ways you can sneaky get into trouble. But take, for example, that hole at Wild Turkey. Yes, right behind it was that tree line. You went long, you were in trouble. And I think that's the smart thing that they were playing it as, because here I am, like, let's say I'm putting myself in that course designer's shoes. I know people are going to step up to that tee box and see 220 yards, and they're going to say, I know it's downhill, but I'm going to keep, one club up, or they're not going to go down enough clubs. I think that's where that designer was thinking the guys are going to get in trouble, is going long. And
there was 2 bunkers in the front, which gets in your head.
2 bunkers in the front. Exactly. But also you got to play those numbers of what the risk is, because at the end of the day, I would much rather be in a bunker than be in the woods. I'd rather be in a greenside bunker. There's the play. Sure, it's still trouble, but there's also degrees of trouble. It's funny. I was just listening to an interview with Jordan Spieth. He was talking about that amazing hole out at the Travelers. And he was saying he actually, with that 225 shot into the green, he said no problem. He wasn't going to overclub it. He was completely happy with hitting it in the sand, because he was comfortable coming out of it, because he had just hit a shot out of it. So It's not always something that has to be 100% avoided. It's just trying to think which way you're going to go through it. But the other thing too is, dramatic elevation changes like that, they get you immediately thinking. I think the trickiest ones are the sneaky elevation changes. And what made me think of this is you mentioning, the home track where I play here. You got somebody like my father who's been playing there since 1982. It's crazy. Since we first moved up to this area, he's been playing there, and he knows the place like the back of his hand. And he'll have these little nuances. He'll tell me, like, there's one hole that very gradually, you'd have to look at it from way back to even see it, but it very gradually slopes down. So there's nothing dramatic. There's nothing to just pick up on. So it's sneaky low. And he just says this always plays a club less. And I'll always, I listen to him, I club up one and he's right every time. It's because it's this very sneaky, subtle, very long, slow elevation change rather than those big dramatic ones.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways, but I think the key here is, one of the smarter things you can do is switch over from trying to get so hung up on numbers and trying to get hung up on what's the yardage and start thinking of quantifying those slopes in terms of clubs. Rather than measuring it in feet, yards, whatever, try to measure it in, is it one club slope or two? So a 2 club slope is going to be a dramatic one. A 1 club slope is you're going to feel it, but it's not going to be as dramatic. And rarely you're going to encounter a slope that's severe enough to change your selection by a full 3 clubs. I mean, that's pretty epic. I think the closest thing would be the one we're talking about. But you know what I'm saying? Like usually it's going to be in that range. So by trying to eliminate it, there's so much variation, and just bring it down to just saying, is this going to be 1 club or 2? You're going to be able to do this next step, which I'll talk about in a second, a lot easier.
Yeah. Real quick, that par 4 that we all hate at your club, that everyone tries to go for it, and I put it in the woods every time.
Yep.
What's the elevation situation there?
Oh, that's a dramatic elevation change.
Is that a 3 club there?
Well, the thing is that the target, tough to say because the target's not the green. I'm not reaching that green. So I don't really consider too much the club there as much as I can, as far as like an exact target, as much as I just go with the strategy of clubbing down in general, because even though it's a shorter par 4 and it's all downhill, yes, it's semi-drivable. But the course designer, again, made the course, it gets narrower and narrower and narrower as it gets down towards that green. So it looks like wide open up on open on the tee box. So it makes you just like your mouth watering, and you pull out that driver because you're like, I can reach this thing. And then you don't realize that ball's in the air forever with the driver, and it's just slowly floating towards the OB on both sides. I've since played the smart thing, and I always hit 4-iron off that tee. It always leaves me a gap wedge in, and it's just a smart play.
Your course too.
I know the course. I love doing it. But here's the thing. The 4th step to this process, I think I said 3 steps before, so I misspoke. But the 4th step to this process is vitally important. It's the idea of then making a confident swing. And one of the biggest mistakes a lot of amateur golfers make is they lack confidence once they do actually swing that club. I mean, think about it. We've all done this, right? Downhill. And then at the last moment, you think you got a little bit too much club, you decelerate, and the ball goes nowhere, right? Or, it's uphill, and you swing out of your shoes because you think, I still don't have enough club, and you swing out of your shoes, and you blade it into the side of the hill. All things that are just like not where you want to be.
Right.
So you got to be able to get to that point, like I talked about, where you switch over from that thinking strategy process to the execution process. And in order to do that, you've got to be confident in your strategy and then say, okay, let's execute now. And I think by doing that 3rd step and that little trick and measuring it in clubs, it's a lot easier to be confident. It's a lot easier to be confident in your estimate or your guesstimate in this case by saying, all right, it's a 1 club difference. I can be confident in that rather than saying, I don't know. Is it 165? Is it playing? Is it playing 160? And you start to get to those semantics.
Right.
Just try to more so err on the side of 1 club, no, or not. So that's a big one. And Mike, I'm just looking. We actually have a picture.
I see the photo. I'm looking. It's funny. You got OB left, OB behind. You got bunker left and right, and houses to the right.
But I'm looking at it. I mean, you can't really see much because of the hill. You're actually somewhat safe short.
You're very safe short. Yes.
So here's an example where, like, again, the designer knows that some people are going to be over clubbed here because they're going to be so geared in on seeing that long yardage that they're going to get in trouble long. Where in this case, you can club down. If you come up a little short, you chip it on, you get away with your par. So it's a huge thing to consider.
Do you think every designer is just out to get us?
I don't know if they're all like Pete Diabolical Die.
Right.
But that's the fun of it. I mean, that's the fun of it. If it was all straightforward and easy, it'd be...
What fun would it be, right?
Yeah, what kind of fun? But look, there's always going to be an element of luck that's involved when you have a significant slope. But accepting the fact, that that fact and just trying to make smart choices and switching in and being confident, because the worst thing is just being like that paralysis by analysis, over analyzing it and then chunking it, as I said, or doing something stupid like that because you can't commit to it. So that's an important thing. Now, aside from that, a couple of pointers, a couple things that can kind of make your life a little bit easier. First thing would be, remember, watch your playing partners, okay? Because you're playing with other people. They're playing the same hole. You can learn a whole lot by watching the other players in your group and just kind of observe their shots, as they hit towards what's inevitably going to be the same target. You can really gain a better understanding of elevation by seeing what happens to them. And if you want to make sure, here's a little side tip. If you want to make sure that, you see at least one shot before you play, do your best to outdrive at least somebody in the group. And by being that little bit more aggressive in a tee shot with the elevation change, you can gain that little bit of information edge by letting the people who are a little further back go before you. So as long as you outdrive somebody in the group, you're going to have something sort of basis to go on.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's a good one. Another thing that's important, and this is something that I learned a lot just researching this, was the idea of using a low ball flight on downhill shots. And yes, it's going into a green. It's absolutely tempting to hit the ball as high as possible, and try to like stick it soft. And the problem is, between the height of the ball flight on its own and that downhill slope, the shot can hang in the air for an extremely long time. And sure, it looks cool to hit that kind of shot, but it's going to be rarely effective because it's hard to control your distance when the ball is in the air so long. So oftentimes, considering that lower ball flight can be a better option, more of I don't want to call it a true punch, but something a little bit of a lower ball flight. And this made me think about that exact hole you were saying, Mike, on my course, where it's that long downhill par 4. I played it in a local pro-am with this young guy, great, club pro, really good. He could have easily drove that green, and he didn't even attempt it, which just told me something. Right. But we were both, about gap wedge out. And this particular green, although it's sloped towards you, it's one of the hardest greens to hold on the course. I actually aim for the front of the green, or actually the fairway sometimes shy of the green, and let it run up, because this green is it's so hard to hold. It's one of the newer greens. They just put it in 2-3 years ago. It's still a little bit hard. So I'm thinking, look at, this guy's going after that green. Maybe I should tell him that it's really hard. He hit that green and stopped it on a dime.
Wow.
Now, I didn't think much about it until I was doing this. And then I thought, I hit my wedge shot really high and it still rolled a little bit. He didn't hit his wedge shot that high. He used like a mid trajectory, and yet he still was able to stop it, but he had so much more control over that by not hitting it way up and being able to judge that distance. So that was interesting. I kind of learned a lot from that in that moment, and actually thinking back on it. But anytime that the ball is not too high in the air, you're going to have a little bit more ability to control it. So you may want to consider that. And that's why it's always good when you're at the range, you talk about different things to practice. One big thing to practice is different trajectories, which we have covered before on the show. But that's an important one. And the last little tip that we have is just try to play with plenty of margin in these cases. Taking that aggressive approach is not the right way of thinking when you're playing a shot that's significantly up or downhill. Sure, there's going to be elevation changes all the way through the course, but no matter what track you're playing, it's going to be rare. It's not going to be a lot of shots that you're going to hit with huge elevation changes, because otherwise, I don't know. I don't want to meet the people who have to walk those tracks down, up and down, up and down. So those are the type of holes, when you see them, you see that layout, that's where you want to try to play a little bit safe. Get a little bit more aggressive on some of the other holes, some of the ones that you can really dial in your distance. But in these cases, instead of always going for that flag stick, which you'll probably notice will often also be tucked in a place that can get you in a little bit more trouble, knowing that people are going to be having trouble with the elevation. The better thing is play it a little safer, play the meatier part of the green, play for a little bit bigger targets. That will give you that margin of error if you're off in your estimate of distance, plus or minus 5 yards or whatever. By aiming for that meaty part of the green, you still get a chance to get on that dance floor and be putting. And remember, there's going to be plenty of other holes on the course where you can make that more aggressive approach. So take that patient approach, try to avoid the mistakes. And one of the things that makes golf so interesting is the fact that it's not played over flat ground, like you said, Mike. So most courses have some degree of elevation change included in the design. And some have dramatic changes included, between the first tee and the last green. So learning how to do this, playing those sloped holes, it's a really great way to get your game prepared for different things that can be thrown at you. So I think it's something that everybody should learn. I think it's something that, again, don't mentally atrophy by having that rangefinder and always having to rely on it. Try to, even if you're going to use the rangefinders, try to quiz yourself a little bit before you do it. Try to see what kind of estimate you would do before you look at that slope, adjusted number, and see what I would hit if I was in a competition here. And it's just a good way to train the mind and get used to it and get ready for when you do play ultimately in a tournament.
Yeah, I love these tips. And you and I are playing a elevation type course in a couple days, and I'm going to put a lot of this to work. I mean, I have a little bit of the advantage with the yellow piece on the rangefinder. I mean, I'll admit that I'm able to just get an accurate elevation change, right on the spot. But, sometimes I don't have it with me. Sometimes I need to rely on a lot of these tips. So these are real helpful. I have a really high ball flight myself, and I've been trying to lower my ball flight somehow. I think it could really help me. So that was a really good one for me.
Yeah. And look, high ball flight is a great thing to have, but it's also good to be able to adjust that, and working on trajectory is always an important thing.
Right.
So good stuff. All right. Before we wrap it up, once again, I just want to thank the USGA for sponsoring this episode. You may know the USGA mostly for its championships, but did you know the USGA is working to modernize golf's rules by making them easier to understand and apply, and that they're working with golf facilities to help reduce their dependency on critical resources, including reliance on water, or that the USGA's handicap system is used in more than 40 countries around the world? There's a lot to love about golf, and the greatness of the game brings out the best in all of us. Discover more at usga.org. So, okay, Mike, as always, I love to get the feedback. If you guys got something out of this episode, if you have something else you want to add and contribute, post it in the Facebook group. That's the best way to get a hold of us and throw it in there. We'd love to hear you guys take on it. And I love that everybody's been posting some pictures and videos of the different tracks you're playing. Get to live a little vicariously through everyone. But if you've got a hole, if you've got a picture of something that's a dramatic elevation change, let's see it. I want to see some crazy pictures. I like that. Yeah. Post those in the Facebook group. That'd be really cool. And don't forget, you still got a couple more weeks, but cause you can post around anytime between July 15th and August 15th, but get in there with the Golficity Virtual Open. It's really cool. We've even got on the 18 Birdies app a little private feed going where everybody can talk a little trash, have a little fun with it, post some pictures. Great stuff. So just go to golficity.com/open. That'll give you all the information and all the links you need to download the app, get yourself set up, get in the tournament. And we've got a great conversation going on about it in the Facebook group. So be sure to check that out. All right. That's everything we have for everybody. We will see everybody again next week.